Everyone in Chicago said Damien Sinclair was a cold-blooded monster. He kept a house full of venomous snakes, yet none were colder than he was. I married him only because our engagement existed before the Carter family went bankrupt. Over the years, he toyed with countless women, and I, his so-called wife, was left to deal with them. When I knelt to write checks to make them leave, those women would lift my chin with the tips of their high heels and sneer. Mr. Sinclair said you should kneel to send us off. Every time, Damien would sit on the second floor, swirling a glass of red wine, watching with cold indifference. Then Amber came along, a factory girl from the countryside. One day, the hospital called. They had finally found a kidney match for my sister. I called Damien in a panic, but it wasn't him who answered. It was Amber's delicate voice. "Miss Secretary?" Mr. Sinclair said, "My foot hurts. Could you bring me a Band-Aid?" That night, it was raining hard. I stood drenched outside the presidential suite, Band-Aid in hand. From inside came Damien's languid voice. "Come in, bring the Band-Aid." A pause, and the 3 boxes of condoms on the table. I stood frozen, listening to the sounds of their intimacy. Then my phone rang. It was the hospital. The doctor's voice was hesitant. "Madam Elena, your sister said something disrespectful to Miss Amber, and Mr. Sinclair ordered the medical team removed." She pulled out her own dialysis tube. The screen lit up with my sister's final message. "Sister, stop kneeling for me." I rushed to the hospital. The nurse looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry, Madam Elena. After your sister offended Miss Amber, the team was removed. We didn't get to her in time." I stood there, numb, my blood running cold. Another message arrived. It was from Damien. "Elena, this is just a small warning. If you want to save what's left of your family, behave, and don't upset Amber again." Tears slipped silently down my face as I stared at the screen. When my family collapsed, everyone said I married him for money. No one knew I had loved Damien in silence for 10 years. When I stood at the gates of the Sinclair family, holding our marriage certificate, I truly believed I could thaw the ice in his heart. I watched countless women come and go. I never cared. I thought it was all just a game. But Amber was different. She was never a game. After my sister's cremation, I left the funeral home in a daze, her ashes in a small porcelain jar clutched to my chest. I returned home, took out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago, and went straight to Damien's company. When I opened the office door, I saw him holding Amber in his arms, kissing her as if no one else in the world existed. His face, always cold, always distant, was now tender, full of warmth I had never seen. In 5 years of marriage, he had never once embraced me. Sex was mechanical, wordless. When he was done, he turned away. No eye contact, no warmth. But now he cradled Amber like something sacred. She playfully hit his chest, and he smiled, brushing her hair from her face. Then he finally acknowledged me. "She's on her period," he said, without even looking up. "Go buy her some sanitary pads." I glanced down. Draped around Amber's waist was Damien's 6-figure designer suit jacket. Suddenly, I remembered last month, how I had collapsed with a fever during my own period. I had weakly tugged on his sleeve, asking for help. He had shaken me off. "You're uncomfortable? Go see a doctor." When I returned with the shopping bag, Amber had already gone into the bathroom. I leaned against the wall outside the door, staring blankly at the ceiling, my mind drifting. Suddenly, something wet and heavy slapped against my face. The sharp, metallic scent of blood flooded my nose. "Oh, sorry." Her sweet voice drifted from inside. "Sister Elena, could you help me wash my underwear?" She paused, then added with a smug lilt, "Mr. Sinclair said my hands are for serving him. I'm not allowed to get them wet." I didn't say a word. I quietly washed the bloodied underwear with trembling fingers. Damien sat on the sofa nearby, a snake coiled leisurely around his hand, a glass of red wine in the other. He often looked like this, detached, elegant, dangerous. Like the cold-blooded creatures he kept, beautiful and heartless. I approached, placing the divorce papers in front of him. "Sign it." He didn't even glance at me at first. I studied his profile, sharp jawline, emotionless eyes. I suddenly remembered the first time I heard about his past. Back then, a kidnapping had left his brother dead and him abandoned in the dark. I thought, foolishly, that I could warm his soul. He looked up, sarcasm flickering in his eyes. "So impatient," he sneered.
"Fine.
The medical team can return." Then he lazily pointed toward Amber, who was curled on the couch like a fragile porcelain doll. But first, apologize to Amber. Without hesitation, I dropped to my knees. Miss Amber, I said quietly, I'm sorry. My sister was wrong to say what she did. Damien's brows furrowed. He'd seen me kneel before, but never like this. There was no humiliation in my voice, no resentment in my expression, just calm, jarring indifference. And that unsettled him. Amber's eyes reddened immediately. She wiped at imaginary tears. Your sister said I was a homewrecker. Her voice trembled. But the truth is, you're just old and can't keep Mr. Sinclair's heart. She turned to him, her voice pitiful and aggrieved. Is it because I'm a factory girl? That I don't deserve to be respected? His expression softened instantly. He gently wiped away her tears. Don't say that. You saved me during that mudslide. You're not like the rest. Then he coaxed. Little fool, tell me, what do you want to forgive them? Amber lifted her chin. Her eyes gleamed with cruelty. I wanted to crawl into Bruno's doghouse and sleep there night. Bruno, Damien's German Shepherd, lived in a kennel in the living room. I stood frozen, my chest tightening. In the past, I had endured humiliation from other women. But this was different. I looked at Damien instinctively, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that he would show a flicker of hesitation. But he didn't. Do as Amber says, he said, sipping his wine as if discussing the weather. If she's satisfied, I'll call the medical team back tomorrow. My nails dug into my palms as I fought back the heat rising in my eyes. If I sleep there for one night, will you sign the divorce papers? He smiled coldly. Of course, as long as Amber is happy. My head dipped. My voice was barely above a whisper. Okay. Gasps echoed from the watching servants as I dropped to my knees and began crawling toward the kennel. Bruno snarled, teeth bared, and I curled up in the corner of his doghouse, trembling. Upstairs, laughter and moans echoed through the floorboards, unbearable, endless. I bit my lip so hard it bled. Just one more night, I told myself. One more night, and I'll finally be free. The wind outside was sharp and merciless. Curled up in that filthy space, drifting between wakefulness and fevered dreams, I lost track of time. By morning, when a servant opened the kennel, I was already burning with fever. My vision darkened. Where's Mr. Sinclair? I croaked. My voice barely sounded human. The servant looked away, speaking in a hushed tone. He left early to celebrate Miss Amber's birthday. I forced myself to the banquet hall, fevered and swaying with every step, just in time to see Damien fastening a diamond necklace around Amber's neck. The look in his eyes, I'd never seen it before. Soft, tender. Amber, he said gently, meeting you is the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me. My heart clenched. Then Amber spotted me. Her voice rang out, deliberately loud. Sister Elena, today's my birthday, and that necklace you're wearing, how special. Give it to me as a gift, okay? I stiffened. The wooden necklace around my neck was the last thing my sister ever made for me. Her final gift. Give it to her, Damien said without looking up from his wine. I bit back the pain, forcing a hollow smile. I unclasped the necklace, placed it into Amber's hand, then reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers. Without a word, Damien signed. Fine, he said coldly. Go find Assistant Miller. He'll arrange a new medical team for you. Then he turned to Amber and pulled her into his arms. Just as I was about to leave, Amber grabbed my wrist. Her expression shifted to mock concern. Oh no, Sister Elena, your hand is burning up. Let me get you some antipyretics. She gripped me tighter. I tried to pull away, but I was too weak. Then she leaned in close and whispered, her voice dripping with poison. By the way, what do you think Bruno would like for a treat today? Before I could react, she pulled a small porcelain jar from her coat pocket, the one I knew too well. My sister's ashes. Give it back. My voice cracked as I lunged toward her, but she let go on purpose. The jar hit the ground with a sharp crack, shattering. The ashes scattered across the floor. Bruno came bounding over, tail wagging. He sniffed the mess and began to lick. No, I screamed, falling to my knees. Stop, please. Amber stood above me, smiling as if watching a performance. Mr. Sinclair only has me in his heart, she said sweetly. Why do you keep embarrassing yourself? Then she tossed the wooden necklace into a nearby trash bin. You and your short-lived sister? You both deserved it. Shut up. I slapped her across the face. Don't you dare talk about my sister. She held her cheek, then smirked. Why not?
She's dead.
Isn't it fitting her ashes fed a dog? I raised my hand again, but it never landed. Damien caught my wrist midair. His face was a mask of fury. Elena, he said darkly, are you looking for death? Amber immediately turned on the waterworks. She called me a country girl, said I was no better than a chicken, said I didn't deserve to stay in the Sinclair family. At a glance from Damien, 2 bodyguards rushed forward and forced me to my knees. Hit her, he said coldly. Amber hesitated for show. Isn't that a bit too much? But Damien took her hand himself and swung it hard across my face. The slap rang out, sharp and final. My skin stung, my mouth filled with the taste of blood. My face went numb on one side. I lifted my head, dazed, and I looked at the man I had loved for over a decade. He wasn't even looking at me. He was gently cradling Amber's hand, rubbing it like something precious. Did that hurt, sweetheart? He asked softly. That's when I finally woke up. To him, I wasn't even worth the attention he gave a dog. Damien looked at me again, frowning. I think I'll take back the medical team. But before he could finish, I let out a bitter laugh. Tears streamed down my burning cheeks. There's no need, I said hoarsely. My sister died long ago. Her ashes are gone now, too. He stared at me, briefly speechless. Then he turned away, cold, unmoved, his arm around Amber as they walked off together like nothing had happened. I dragged myself back to the villa, every step heavier than the last. I began packing what little I had. 5 years in this place, and nothing truly belonged to me. I never dared keep anything with almonds in the kitchen. Just the faintest trace could trigger his allergies. Every year before Memorial Day, I would travel to Napa Valley myself, just to bring back the freshest premium green tea. I remember the time he became obsessed with racing. I secretly enrolled in driving courses, passed the test, and earned a license, thinking I could surprise him. But when I told him, smiling with excitement, he only gave me a cold glance. Don't touch my car. 5 years of marriage. All I had left was a marriage certificate. No photos. No shared memories. Even our fights were one-sided. I argued in silence, and he never bothered replying. At dawn, the door slammed open. Damien burst in, face twisted with fury. He stormed up to me and wrapped his fingers around my neck. Where's Amber? I gasped, clawing at his hand. I don't know. Still lying. His grip tightened, cutting off my breath. She disappeared this morning after getting an anonymous message. Who else but you would want to hurt her? I really don't know. I choked out, shaking my head. His eyes darkened. He motioned to the bodyguards. Before I could react, they dragged me out to the pool and threw me in. The icy water slammed into my body, stealing the air from my lungs. I struggled to surface, coughing, only to feel Damien's hand push my head under again. I'll ask one last time, he said above me. Where is she? Water surged into my nose, my throat, my lungs. The world spun, and my vision began to blacken. Somewhere, through the growing numbness, I heard his voice. You really won't cry until you see the coffin, will you? When I came to, bright white lights stabbed into my eyes. I was tied to an iron chair, wrists bound, my body aching. Across from me sat Damien, his once familiar gaze now filled with cold, murderous rage. Amber curled in his lap, sobbing dramatically. Mr. Sinclair, if you hadn't arrived when you did, I would have been. She let the words trail off, her shoulders shaking in practiced tremors. I turned my neck, muscles stiff, and saw more than a dozen men kneeling on the ground, faces bloodied, begging. Damien didn't spare them a glance. He crossed his legs slowly, voice sharp as frost. Elena, I underestimated you. Even this kind of despicable trick, all to win sympathy. I opened my mouth to explain, but in that instant he lifted his hand. A flick of his wrist. The venomous snake he had raised for years slithered free and lunged at me. Its fangs sank deep into my arm. Agony exploded through me like fire, spreading fast, relentless. My vision blurred. My body trembled uncontrollably. When you wake up, he said, standing up with Amber in his arms, come back to me on your knees. The warehouse door slammed shut behind him. Silence. Then low, cruel laughter echoed from the bloodied men on the floor. The one in front spat out blood, his smile turning savage. Damien dares to mess with us? We'll make him pay, through his woman. Panic surged. but the venom had already paralyzed my limbs. I thrashed in my restraints as their footsteps closed in. Rough hands tore at my collar, and the world went dark. When I woke again, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Pain racked every inch of my body. My ribs felt shattered, my skin torn open. I coughed, and blood spilled from my lips. My fingers twitched weakly, every movement screaming. Memories flickered like a dying reel of film. My sister's gentle smile. The way my heart once raced when I first saw Damien. Those nights spent listening to him and others from behind a locked door. And then, the iron door creaked open. A figure stood in the doorway, tall and backlit by blinding white light. His face was shadowed, but the silhouette was firm, unmoving. I didn't know who he was, but he wasn't Damien. With the last shred of strength left in my body, I raised my blood-stained hand, trembling. "Help me." When he looked up, I froze. The man standing before me wasn't a stranger. It was Damien. After bringing Amber back to the villa, Damien had immediately summoned a private doctor. After a brief examination, the doctor said gently, "She's just a little shaken. Physically, she's fine." "I'm still scared, Boss Shin," Amber whispered, curling up on the sofa with red-rimmed eyes. Damien rubbed his temple, his expression tired. He turned to his assistant. "Send over that new ruby necklace, and order a pink Porsche." Over the years, women had come and gone from Damien's life like a carousel. None stayed longer than a month, except for Amber. She had already lasted nearly 3. Part of it was because she had supposedly saved him during that mudslide. The other part, her body, which he found irresistible. The next morning, while seated at the breakfast table, Damien suddenly paused mid-sip and picked up his phone. "Has Elena contacted you?" he asked the assistant. "Delay the medical team for now. Lily won't die immediately." There was a brief silence. Then the assistant answered cautiously, "Mr. Sinclair, Madam hasn't contacted me." Damien hung up, frowning. An unexpected irritation settled in his chest. He lit a cigarette, fingers absently stroking the snake coiled around his wrist. After a moment, he stood up abruptly and left for the hospital. At the hospital, the attending doctor met him with a heavy face. "Mr. Sinclair, I'm sorry. Miss Lily, her will to live was too weak. While waiting for a donor, she pulled out the dialysis tube herself. We tried everything we could." The word struck him like a thunderclap. His mind went blank. A loud ringing filled his ears. The last time Elena came to him, her sister had probably already been gone. Her eyes had looked so calm then, so gentle. She had been his fiancée since childhood. After they married, she never disobeyed him, not even when he brought other women into their home. He got into his car and, for the first time in a long while, called her. The line rang endlessly. No one picked up. He opened WeChat. A red exclamation mark popped up. She had blocked him. Back at the villa, Damien strode into the kitchen. Relief flickered in his chest when he saw a familiar figure from behind. "Elena," he said, half laughing, "you really dared to block me." The woman turned. "Mr. Sinclair," she said softly, eyes shimmering. "I'm Amber." Damien's smile froze. It wasn't her. For a full week, there was no trace of Elena. Not a call, not a word. During a business trip to Nanshan County, he stopped by a small convenience store. As he was leaving, the store owner suddenly pointed at him and called out, "Hey, aren't you the guy who got trapped in that mudslide?" Damien paused, offering only a polite nod. The shopkeeper beamed. "Your wife was amazing. She rushed straight into that landslide to save you. She got hit by a rock, bleeding everywhere, but she wouldn't stop. Kept shouting, 'My husband is still in the car.'" Damien froze in place. "My wife?" he asked slowly. "You mean Amber?" The shopkeeper frowned, already pulling up a photo on his phone. No. "Look, this is the picture I took from the rooftop. That thin lady. Wasn't she your wife?" In the blurry photo, Elena was covered in blood, dragging his unconscious body through the mud with all her strength. Damien's fingers trembled. He remembered. When he woke up in the hospital, Amber had been sitting by his bed, claiming she'd saved him. And Elena had called him that same day. He hadn't answered. She must have been in the hospital herself then. When he was discharged, he brought Amber home. And Elena had stood there with a scar on her forehead, silent. She didn't say a word. She just looked at Amber with unreadable eyes. Back then, he thought Elena was just being jealous. He never imagined the truth would hit like this. Check on Amber. Damien's voice was glacial. I want to know why she lied. After returning from Southport, he didn't go home. He headed straight to a private club. Inside the dimly lit room, several bruised men were forced to the floor, their faces swollen and bloodied. Special Assistant Miller kicked one hard in the ribs. You ran fast, didn't you? His voice was sharp, biting. Talk. What really happened? These men had tried to flee abroad, but they were dragged back. No one escaped Damien. They looked up and saw him reclining lazily on a leather sofa, a venomous snake curled around his fingers like an accessory. Their faces drained of all color. Cat got your tongues? Damien exhaled a smoke ring, eyes bored. Crack. One of the men suddenly shrieked and collapsed, clutching his leg. He didn't get up again. Assistant Miller calmly wiped the silencer clean. Who's next? Panic exploded. It was Amber, someone blurted. She paid us to fake it all. The temperature in the room dropped sharply. Damien's gaze turned icy. Where's Elena? We don't know, one of them cried. Bang. A bullet tore through his arm. Assistant Miller sighed. Still not convincing. It's the truth, another man wailed. That bitch Amber planned everything. She told us to hurt Miss Carter, humiliate her. Damien stood slowly. The air felt heavier. His voice was dead calm. Who laid a hand on her? The men hesitated. That was enough. Bang. Bang. More screams. Damien looked down at them without emotion. I'll let you live for now. Outside, Damien lit another cigarette, then typed a message to Amber. See you tomorrow. I've prepared a surprise for you. She replied within seconds, sending 3 kiss emojis. He stared at the screen, a cruel smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. The next day, Amber arrived at the private yacht, dressed to the nines. She spotted Damien leaning against the railing and beamed. Mr. Sinclair, she cooed. Before she could step closer, 2 bodyguards grabbed her and forced her to the deck. What are you doing? She screamed. Damien crouched beside her, tapping her cheek lightly with a dagger. Why did you lie to me? Her face paled. Mr. Sinclair, I don't know what you mean. I hate liars. With a swift motion, he sliced her arm. Blood bloomed across her skin. She shrieked, clutching the wound. He grabbed her by the neck and dragged her toward the yacht's edge, the waves crashing beneath them. There are a lot of sharks in these waters, he said coldly. Think this much blood can call a few over? Wait, I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Amber screamed, hysterical. I staged the kidnapping. I lied about Lily too. I made it all up. He didn't flinch. A flash of silver, and a thin red line appeared across her cheek. She fainted from the shock and pain, collapsing in a heap. Send her to the mental hospital, Damien said flatly. And don't let her out without my permission. Back at the villa, his chest was tight with unease. Elena's silence was maddening. Bring me ginseng soup, he ordered the servants irritably. One of them brought over a bowl of cloudy broth, trembling. Sir, Madame used to prepare it herself. She would simmer it for 3 hours. He stared at the bowl in a daze. This villa was always hot and humid, kept that way for the snakes. No servants stayed overnight. No women ever lived here. Except her. He remembered, years ago, Elena once mentioned the heat. Just once. She never brought it up again. He tossed his coat onto the sofa and instinctively glanced at the coffee table. Something was missing. The small animal figurines he used to scoff at, calling them childish, were gone. For some reason, that empty space gnawed at his chest. Later, lying in bed, he tossed and turned restlessly. Unable to sleep, he opened the drawer of the nightstand. Melatonin patches, band-aids, stomach medicine, everything meticulously organized, just like Elena used to do. The woman who had always existed in the background, quiet, attentive, never demanding, was gone. It felt like falling into a long dream. In it, the Carter family hadn't gone bankrupt. My sister was still alive, calling me Lena and tugging at my sleeve. My parents were still there, their voices warm, the house full of laughter. But when I woke, there was nothing but a piercing ache in my chest and a cold that wouldn't leave my bones. My mind floated in and out of consciousness, sometimes alert, sometimes drifting. When I finally opened my eyes again, I saw a tall figure standing quietly nearby. You're awake. That voice made my heart skip. I blinked. My gaze met the pair of eyes I hadn't seen in years. Owen. He came over quickly, concern written on his face. "Miss," he greeted softly. I recognized him immediately. "Don't call me that," I said faintly. The Carter family went bankrupt a long time ago. 10 years ago, he was just the son of our family driver, a quiet, humble student who wore faded school uniforms and sat in the back of our class. Now, he wore a tailored suit. The gold-rimmed glasses perched on his nose reflected calm intelligence. He had become a man who stood tall in any room. Sensing my discomfort, he lowered his voice. "Rest for now," he said gently. "I'll come see you later." When we met again, he stood by my bed with a team of doctors. The attending physician's expression was grave. "Miss Carter's intestines have partially necrotized. We need to operate immediately." Owen's face turned pale. I simply looked out the window at the leaves falling in slow spirals. "Go ahead," I said. "I'm not afraid." The surgery was a success. But during the slow, painful recovery, I often sat by the window in silence. I had lost everything. And now I didn't even know how to face this man who once needed my help but now seemed so far above me. Until one day, the stillness of the yard was broken. Servants bustled about, carefully arranging pots of rare flowers in the garden. The housekeeper came to my room and smiled. "Mr. Owen said these are rare varieties he wanted auctioned. He wants you to care for them personally." I hesitated at first, but slowly, I found peace in tending to the flowers. Unlike the Sinclair villa, humid and suffocating, kept hot year-round for the snakes, this place was warm with sunshine. The plants thrived, and gradually so did I. Then, one morning, Owen appeared at the door holding a small beagle pup. "This little guy's way too energetic. Will you help me look after him?" I knew he brought the puppy on purpose, but when its wet little nose bumped against my hand, I couldn't help but smile for the first time in what felt like forever. From that day on, the puppy became part of my world. We walked together, played fetch, napped in the sunlight, and I laughed, really laughed. Owen started taking me on short hikes. Eventually, I even got behind the wheel again. The colors of life returned, slowly but surely. By midsummer, I had fully recovered. Owen invited me to a charity dinner, saying it was time I eased back into social life. At the event, a group of deaf and mute children began performing on stage with cellos. Suddenly, the lead child froze. His back was to the audience. He stood motionless, small hands clutching the bow, shaking slightly. "They're nervous." "Well, they're special children. Just making it on stage is already a victory." I stared at the boy's trembling silhouette. In that moment, I saw myself, years ago, on a silent stage, behind a grand piano. After a moment of hesitation, I stepped forward and crouched in front of the frozen child. With practiced fingers, I signed gently, "Don't be afraid. Just imagine you're practicing at home. Look around. None of these people can understand us. Just treat it like you're performing for the sky." The child blinked, then let out a soft laugh. The tension in his shoulders eased. Moments later, the soft, melodious music resumed, flowing through the hall like a gentle breeze. Not far away, Owen stood watching. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, his gaze was warm and filled with admiration. "You still remember the sign language Aunt Wang taught us?" he asked softly. The mention of our shared past brought a tight ache to my chest, sweet and sorrowful all at once. Owen stepped closer and gently took my hand. "Elena," he said, voice low. "Back then, I was just the poor boy from the driver's family. I always thought I wasn't good enough for you, the proud heiress of the Carter family." He smiled, a little wistfully. "But now, I can finally stand beside you with my head held high. Will you?" A cold voice cut him off from behind. "What are you doing?" I froze. That voice, I could never mistake it. Damien stood 3 paces away, sharp in his tailored suit, but his expression was thundercloud dark. He walked up and lowered his voice. "Elena, come back with me." I took a step back. "Mr. Sinclair, have you forgotten? You already signed the divorce papers." I didn't read them carefully. "It doesn't count." He reached for my wrist. "Come with me. I'll explain everything." I yanked my arm away. "Enough." My voice cracked. "I've had enough of all these years. Enough of you parading women in and out like trophies. Enough of hearing your footsteps above me while I curled up alone in that dark house filled with snakes. Enough of everything, including how you let my sister die." Damien's face went ashen, panic flickering in his usually unreadable eyes. "Elena, I'm sorry." "Sorry." My voice trembled. "Is that what my sister's life is worth to you? An An apology? He took a breath, as if holding back all the words he couldn't say. Come back with me. I'll make it up to you. I'll give you everything you deserve. I shook my head and turned away, right into Owen's chest. What happened? He asked gently. It's nothing, I said, steadying myself. Let's go. Damien stood there frozen, his clenched fists turning bloodless as he watched us walk away. I thought that would be the end. But the next morning, he was outside Owen's villa. He held a pot of rare orchids, eyes hopeful. Elena, this was your favorite before. I had them flown in overnight. I glanced at the flowers and replied flatly, you hated these before. The following day, he returned, this time with a delicate wooden necklace in his palm. It's a replica of the one your sister made, he said quietly. I had it hand-carved. I didn't even stop. I don't need it. And so it went. Every day, he came back with another gift, another apology, another attempt. On the 30th day, he knelt before me. In his hand was a diamond ring, the size of a small egg. Elena, he whispered, voice hoarse. I was wrong. I believed Amber's lies. It was you who saved me, not her. And I destroyed you because of it. I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Let me give back everything you gave me. I looked down at him, calm and steady, though my hands trembled. It's too late, Damien. You could insult me. You could humiliate me. But you should never have gambled with my sister's life. That's a debt you'll never repay. And if you ever come near me again, I'll call the police. He staggered back, as though struck. The light in his eyes flickered and died. A few months later, Owen proposed to me. I heard that after Damien returned home, he sold off all the snakes. He tore down the snake house. He planted flowers. One day, while reaching for a rare bloom by the cliff's edge, he slipped. The funeral was quiet. Almost no one attended. As for me, I wore white that summer and stood beside Owen beneath the golden sun. Laughter returned to my lips, and warmth returned to my world. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but I had survived it.